I'd like to now call up Howie Rodenstein, Chairman of the Board of Energia Global, as well as Energia USA, to say a few words about coming from Kibbutz Keturah in the southeastern part of Israel to Glynn County.
It's not working. There we go. Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here. It is nice that we're inside now, but I can tell you that coming from our roots, today is a relatively cool day because our roots are in the desert of Israel, and today would be just a nice day out there. You know, life is a journey, not a destination, and I thought it'd be useful for people to understand a little bit the journey that got us here to this wonderful destination today. And so it started in the desert in Israel, where the sun shines and is shining all the time, and where there was an idealistic group of people who live in a rural community called a kibbutz. And they looked outside and said, the sun is shining, solar energy is something that we should do. The world needs renewable energy. Can we do something about it? And looked around and said, what's going on in the state of Israel in terms of commercial scale solar energy? And the answer was basically nothing. And started a process of asking questions. A number of the people who lived on that kibbutz were Americans who had moved to Israel and brought their ideology with them. And the first thing they were told is that they were crazy Americans, and this is Israel, and you're not going to be able to get anything done because we have bureaucracy here. And of course, there's no bureaucracy in America, but you know. And don't bother. And some of those people took, when you said no, that means, well, we have to try harder. And I think we see that in a lot of ways. We chronicled, first went out and raised some seed money to start the process, chronicled a process that need to change over 100 government regulations to be able to support commercial solar energy. And over the course of a number of years, worked hard and started knocking off those regulations one at a time. Eventually we succeeded, and on Kibbutz Keturah built the first utility scale solar energy field, which was a 4.9 megawatt field, which we broke ground in 2000 and
5 years ago today.
5 years ago today. That field created a lot of fanfare. Israel, with its reputation as a startup nation, which I'm sure you've all heard somewhat about, generates visitors. And over the course of that time, we had visitors from tens of countries, particularly developing countries, come and look at this solar field and say, how can we do some of this? And so as the Israeli solar industry became more commonplace and industrialized, and regular, the pioneers who built this solar field said, I want to do some more pioneering. Where can we help pioneer more solar fields? And Africa became a target. We looked around in lots of places. First, we found a whole bunch of investors that were ready to take a risk on that. And we identified an amazing situation in Rwanda at a youth village there that was an educational facility for orphans from the bad times in Rwanda. It was actually built upon and modeled after some youth villages in Israel that had accepted young people into Israel that were orphans. And we found land on that village and built the first utility-scale solar field in sub-Saharan Africa, which opened 2 years ago, year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And not only did that increase the electrical generation capacity of the country of Rwanda by 6% in our little field that was 8.5 megawatts, but it provided income for this youth village that covers the health care of all of the students for the next 20 years. So then how do we go from Africa to Glynn County? Well, of course, sitting in Rwanda, we targeted Glynn County because it's such a wonderful place. But well, as part of what we had based in Israel, we had this incredible, nice young man, David Herskovits, come by and say, I want to learn about solar energy. And so he spent a year or so with us in Jerusalem learning about solar